All right, now I'm pretty excited about this bad boy. We've caught a bit of a break in the weather, so let's talk about the Daiwa Bait Junkie Jigheads that I've got here. Now, they have been on the market for a little while, and I have owed this review also for a little while. But I first got my hands on these probably 18 months before they actually came out. Well, I saw my first model about 18 months before they first came out. About just over 12 months, I first fished with these jigheads, and I knew that they were the business. Now, in this video, I'm going to hit the high points of the jigheads because everything about the jigheads, and I'll talk about them, but everything in the design and all the little features in it are designed to catch more fish for you. And I guess I'll sum this video up, and maybe even the next one, with if you want to catch more fish, use Daiwa Bait Junkie Jigheads. I'll say it again. If you want to catch more fish, use Daiwa Bait Junkie Jigheads. Now, they didn't pay me to say that, but that is what I believe, or that is how strongly I believe in these bad boys. And I'm really happy that these came along. Not for Daiwa's sake, I couldn't actually care if it was Daiwa or another brand, but for my sake, I was stoked. It has been something in the fishing industry that I have found so frustrating, and it seems like the entire industry accepted that pushing your plastic back onto the jig head after it had come off the back was a normal thing. Somehow the industry just accepted it, and the people and the jig head company that was leading the way held the biggest market share and produced the most amount of jig heads in Australia. They just sat on it and they didn't do anything about it. And it annoyed me. They had one of their pros do a workaround for the failure of their product, and then a friend of mine made a video that they shared, and it was Will's workaround to the problem again that was an issue with their jig heads. And then obviously you can get around the issue by using super glue, but I can never get the brand of super glue right, and it always decay the front, or maybe I was just adding a bit too much and made the front of the plastic real crusty. But all of that is now gone with these jig heads, and there's a fair bit more to the jig heads than just that keeper. So I'm going to hit the high points, and the reason that I'm only going to hit the high points today is because I have the full interview coming next week, a full sit-down interview with the guy that developed these, and we look at the 17 different prototypes and all the different stages that Daiwa went through to come up with these jig heads. That is a video that you're going to want to watch because it will make you a better angler. So hit that notification bell below so that you do not miss that video, because it is 100% worth it. You'll catch more fish because of it. I should also mention, courtesy of Daiwa, there is a giveaway in this video, so let's get into it. So in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 major topics and why using the jig heads will actually make you catch more fish, and I'll talk about that as I go through. Now, the first topic is not so much about the jig head itself, but it's about the packaging. And it's a real positive play here from Daiwa because the package is actually made from recycled plastic. It is recyclable itself, but it's made from recycled plastic that includes some plastic that has come out of the ocean. So in terms of that environmental space, it is a big tick. Now, I would love it to be some sort of like biodegradable cardboard material that, you know, if it did end up in the water, then it would break down. And there are some plastics hitting the market at the moment, but they are super expensive. And I will add that that is the direction of sustainability that Daiwa in Australia do want to go.
I think you know, trying to minimise our usage of plastic is important, and Bait Junkie plastics now are made from recycled plastic packaging. So anytime we can do that kind of thing, try and make the package either reusable or made it from recycled material, and then obviously the next evolution will be trying to make, you know, some sort of environmentally friendly plastic alternative packaging, which is again, that's something I'm pretty passionate about, which hopefully will happen sooner rather than later, but we've got a lot of good people on it.
And on that topic, I really like that these bags are resealable. They've got that Ziploc attachment on the top there, and that is a huge improvement because they are resealable and reusable, and it's a huge improvement on what the other brand on the market do, and that is have a clamshell with the staple in the front, and as soon as you open it for the first time, those jig heads are going everywhere. Now, it is the epitome of a single-use plastic in that you can't even reuse them and relock them down because they will just pop open again. and that means that anglers are forced into using some sort of storage option, or at least buying a tackle box. With these, you don't need to. You can keep them in these packs, take out as you need it, and then slot it straight back in the boat or the kayak or your bag, however you need. You don't actually need one of these. Now, I love these things. These are the new silicone inserts from Daiwa. Actually, and I will be fair here, the majority of them, because when I left Australia, these guys hadn't fully hit the market and I didn't have a lot of them. I'm actually full of the competitors brands here from TT. So I do have the Bait Junkie Jigheads along the back row, but like as you can see, they weren't on the market yet, so I didn't have a lot of them. I was definitely using them sparingly. To the point, I was testing them against each other. Now I digress a little bit. The single-use plastic thing is a bit of a gripe of mine, because I always found that I would end up with rusted hooks. Like I'd open a packet, I'd use one hook, and then maybe the rest of the packet would sit around the kayak, and I would think to myself, yeah, sure, I'll get around to that later. Maybe I landed a fish, some salt water went around and all over the boat, and I'd invariably end up with rusted hooks no matter what I did. So I do think that this is a good step by Daiwa. The last thing on the packaging is a fun thing, and that is the removable Monopoly style sticker. Now, first of all, who doesn't like Monopoly? But secondly, if you've got a box like this, and you want to keep things labeled, you have the option to just peel off the sticker and stick it wherever you need it. And that is outstanding. If you've got one of those boxes that's really segmented, you can then keep track of the jig head sizes. Now, not only are the jig head sizes written on the hook themselves, you know, on the front of the jig head, but it's a really nice quick reference to open, go bang, there it is, and you are done. The stick is reusable as well, so you can peel it off and stick it up there, and it's a unique little invention that I quite like. Feels like I'm playing Monopoly every single time. The thing that does slow me down a little bit, and to be completely fair about the product, is that they've thrown the sticker over the top where the opening is to get to, or the ziplock to get to it, and that means that opening can slow me down a little bit. So I need some scissors every now and again to cut along the top to open that up. Now, I, as a consumer, would love to see it around the side, but I think that won't happen, and it won't happen because when it's over the top, it does serve as a little bit of an anti-theft device for retailers. So I think retailers who, you know, buy their products from Daiwa are probably going to have the say in that one, and are always going to go for that sticker that just goes across the top. So that's the packaging. Now, overall, a big tick for me. Let's talk about the keeper. So the keeper is the second part, and over the 17 different prototypes, like I mentioned in the intro, that Daiwa went through, this is the first main thing that I think will help anglers 100% catch more fish. It's going to increase your conversion rate, and you will have a better time on the water because of it. Because importantly, this jig head right here actually holds the plastic where it should be held.
The Bait Junkie Jigheads. Look at that jig head. It's still planted and seated well up against after a fight, but doesn't need to be reseated as it's been pulled off. It's still sitting there. It's just nicely seated at the front.
The thing that annoyed me here is that many fish in Australia often peck a lure or a bait multiple times before they come along and just crunch it. And think about it, how many times have you felt that tap, tap, and then that bang and run? It happens all the time. If you're using a plastic that falls apart and fouls after that first tap, well then, that plastic is going to be all mangled up and fouled up after that first tap. That fish isn't going to be interested anymore, and it's going to swim away. If, however, the presentation stays good and you're able to work that lure once or twice more in that water column after that you've got that fish's attention, and maybe it's hit that lure, it's smelt that scent, or the S factor or whatever you use that comes off it, maybe that's enticed the fish again and it's come along and then crunched it, well then your catch percentage is naturally going to go up. The other thing it helps with is ripping plastics through weed. If you've got something that holds the plastic, all of a sudden you're changing from 3 meters of workable area to the whole retrieve, which might be that 20, 30, 40 yards, meters, yards. Ugh, I've been in America for 8 months. So I'll show you some footage here, but this is the first time I physically saw a prototype in use. It was at the Australian Open a couple of years ago, and I was pre-fishing with Tom, and he had a 1/16 size 2 hook that he was rigging on his Daiwa Bait Junkie plastics. I had to blank out the footage when that video initially was released, but with those samples that we were testing that day, we went 23 fish without having to reseat the jig head. And it wasn't that on the 24th fish that we had to stop, it was that we weren't getting any more bites. We'd used that area, it was complete. Now, I did get a couple guys asking, well, if this keeper is so good, is it gonna tear up my plastics as it comes off? And the answer, the long and short answer is, yeah, it probably will. You will be able to reuse plastics if you do feed them on and then carefully feed them off over the barbs, but realistically, if you're going to, say, buy a pack of lures and you're going to buy a pack of these, what I would be doing is just keeping the one that I've rigged, say, let's say a motor oil one, and then putting that back in my bag, and then getting another one out and then rigging that with the Bloodworm color or the Mudblood or whatever your choice of color is. But for me, that trade-off is pretty simple. I go fishing to catch fish, not to be able to reuse a plastic later. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, the other thing I'll mention, but I cannot technically talk about why, and I don't think any of the Daiwa guys can either, but you will not see this keeper rotate. On the production models that are in circulation right now, not the ones that are after, hint, hint, will not rotate. And that can be susceptible to one of the other brands that's on the market as well. So obviously I know what's going on with this keeper, and I personally haven't had one rotate myself. Now, if you've had one rotate for you, I'd love to hear about it. So throw it in the comments below, but at the moment, I haven't heard of any reports of that happening yet. On the actual head itself, you know that it's a cylinder type shape with one flat spot that's designed for the lure or the jig head to sit at the 45 degrees, as opposed to either on its head or where other flat spots might be and on its side. And there's a good reason for that.
Hickson actually jumped in the water and was kind of watching fish react to a plastic on the bottom, and what he noticed, obviously your line is coming off in this kind of direction, right? So a fish's lateral line is sensitive enough that it knows the line's there. It's not going to be sitting here because it'll touch the line and it'll get spooked. So most of the time the fish will be approaching a jig head from kind of this, unless they pin it to the bottom perfectly. Like if they approach it from, like, say, a 45 degree and they pin to the bottom, well, that plastic tends to push over like that with the hook facing down, and conversely, if they're approaching it from the side, they've probably got a better chance of getting the hook. But what we kind of noticed was when the plastic was on an angle that's more of like a 45, fish's ability to kind of eat the tail first all the way to the head cleanly was much higher than when it was completely vertical.
All designed for you to catch more fish. Now, like I said, the info in next week's video is pretty crazy, so those buttons are below.
Tired singing all night long.
Now, as always, a big shout out goes to Daiwa Australia for giving the channel the opportunity to have a look at some of these jig heads prior to their release, and also for the chance to give 10 packets to 2 people away. Now, it is 20 packets in total, so 2 sets of 10, as well as 2 of these bad boys boxes to go with those 10 packs. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment below on the plastics that you use and you would use on these jig heads. They don't have to be Daiwa. If you're a Z-Man guy, throw down Z-Man. If you're a Berkeley power bait guy, throw down that. But in 1 week from today, I will randomly select 2 people in the comments, and each of you will win 10 packets of jig heads and 1 of these buckets. So, boxes, so get typing. Now lastly, we've got the hooks, and it might not surprise you that Daiwa again have gone for the BKK Teflon coated hooks because they slide into fish's mouths so easily. They come in a light gauge and a heavy gauge, which are indicated by the black and the blue colorings on those Monopoly style stickers. And the black also says 2X as opposed to the blue that says 0X. For me personally, I'm a finesse guy, so I like those blue stickers, the 0X light gauge hooks. But if I'm working around structures, say oyster leases, I'll definitely plus that up to the black 2X heavy gauge hooks. The last thing that I'm super happy about is that the sizes of the hooks stay the same no matter what gauge you are dealing with. The other leading brand out there, if you are dealing with a heavy gauge hook, the size 1 and 2 are different to if you are dealing with a light gauge hook in their size 1 and 2. But like I said, Teflon coated hooks, like that stuff that is on your pan that is super slippery, and that makes not only rigging the jig head easy, but when it's in the fish's mouth, the pressure that's required for you to set that hook from 30 meters away is much less, and again, that helps you catch more fish. So I might have digressed and gone down some different chains of thought there, but this was meant to be a condensed version of why these hooks help you catch more fish when you compare them to other things that are currently on the market, other jig heads that are currently on the market. Remember the giveaway, but also remember the video next week. You will be a better fisherman because of it. I hope you enjoy the video. Stay safe. Until next time, I'll see you later. I'm meant to be filming a video for the new Bait Junkie Jig Heads from Daiwa, but this just happened. Oh my God, look at it. Oh my goodness me. Oh yeah. That line just cut. Oh, look at that, man. Look at that tank, this. Oh, look at this. Oh my goodness me, look at this. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus Christ. How insane is that? Look at this fish. Dude. I don't even know how to hold this. It's so goddamn heavy. She's gorgeous. Look at the colors, very dark. Giant bucket mouth on a jig. Gorgeous fish. Now we're gonna let it go. I've had her out for a little while.